The following is a production of Texas Lutheran University. For more information, please visit tlu.edu.
Thank you, number one, to all of you for taking time out of Friday afternoon. I am very happy to have Mr. Al Silva with us today. For those of you who don't know, Al is a 1978 TLU grad. If he hadn't had rotator cuff surgery, probably could still slam dunk a basketball as he anchored our basketball team for many years. And since then, Al has gone on to do just tremendous things with Labatt Food Service. When we first started researching Al's background and what he has accomplished, we realized that at about age 25, he became general manager and chief operating officer of Labatt Foods. And I know that's probably a very under the radar type business for many of you, but consider this: when Al went to work there in 1981, they did $8 million of annual revenues. The next year, they doubled. The year after that, they doubled. In the 30 years that Al has been at the helm as the man in charge, the guy that makes things go, they have gone from $8 million in sales to more than $1 billion in sales. That's better than a 17.5% compounded rate of return. In the world of business, that is nothing short of phenomenal. Usually when you have that type of growth, you invite competitors in. Competitors always envy that kind of a growth rate. You have to really be on top of your game to make sure that you are taking care of your customers, make sure your employees are taken care of, and make sure that competitors cannot get a toehold into your market. On top of that, in visiting with Al, I think his story is nothing short of amazing. Al is the second member of his family to graduate from high school. He is the first member of his family to graduate from college. He grew up in a single parent household, him and 4 sisters. And I think it was almost just by an act of God that he found his way to Texas Lutheran. But when you listen to his story, just think about the integrity it took for him to get from where he started to where he is today, the discipline, the determination. His story, whenever I hear people talk about the American success story is dead, I think about people like Al Silva, because it tells me that today, any of us can become anything we want to, as long as we're willing to work for it. That said, please help me I welcome Mr. Al Silva.
Thank you, and I hope to live up to the billing. So if I disappoint, I am not the one that said everything he did. I've thought about what to share with you, and I want to talk about 5 areas. One, I want to talk about education, because all of you are here to get a good education, or you've gotten one here, like I did. So that phase of my talk will be called the formal education. The second thing I want to talk about is, I want to talk a little bit about athletics, because I also experienced that here, and how it relates to what I do today. And I would probably credit, about a third of the credit for the company's success is probably indebted to my experience and what I learned in athletics. All here, I might add. Then I want to go into post-formal education. Your education really starts when you leave college. That's when it starts. I want to take some time about that, and that's an endless pursuit. You never stop self-educating. You just can't. It's impossible. I currently read 5 books at a time. 5. I brought some for you today. These I've read. The other 5, I can tell you which ones I'm reading and why. And so if you really want to be educated, then you have to self-educate. You have to. It's not a choice. And if you have 1,700 employees depending on your decisions, and if you really think enough of yourself to really tell them what to do, you better at least be well read. Doesn't mean you're going to be right, but at least you're working at it. I want to talk about my second job, which was Labatt Food Service. I'll talk about my first job, my second job. I've only had 2 in my life. And I want to talk about getting in trouble. There's this book here called Leaders at All Levels. If you ever aspire to be a leader, I would really recommend you read this, and you'll find yourself in this book. You will. And, I only have one arm. So I'll talk about that book a little bit, And that's the book where I got the term about getting in trouble. And then I'll end with talking about innovation. And what innovation is today. There's a real good book here. I would really recommend this one. It's called The Innovator's Dilemma. Wonderful book. You'd really enjoy it. Love reading a book that will change the way you do business by Christensen. Wonderful book. So that's kind of my talk. And then I want to open it for questions. And I've committed, kind of a no-holds-barred line of questioning. I'll answer anything you want me to answer. And you can ask anything you want. So we want to leave some time for that. So we'll start. Let me just tell you this. I went to 7 schools. I was an inner city school kid in poverty. And that's not unusual. You usually are always in transient because you can't afford the rent. So I went to 7. 3 elementary, 3 junior high, 1 high school. There was no consistent curriculum, no consistent culture, none. Everything was kind of a sea of change until I got to high school, last 4 years. And that was at Jefferson High School. My coach at Jefferson High School was Jim Schuler. And he coached me as a sophomore. And he recruited me to come here. Because as a sophomore, we came out second in state. And he got hired here. So I lost him as a coach, but at least I knew who he was. And he came back later and recruited me. And then I came here for 4 years. My degree was my certification. If I ever get unemployed, I have my teaching certificate. It's grandfathered. I don't even have to test. And I can teach 4 different subjects. PE, we used to say, poor excuse for going to college when I was here if you were a PE major. And Spanish, because I really thought I was smart. I figured I could really stay eligible and pass Spanish since I was fluent. And 3rd was history, because I love reading. And 4th was health, because, you had to take like 2 or 3 other courses. You had a minor. That was pretty easy. So I thought I was doing pretty good. Very good. Socially, I think what made me was the experience I had here, and then the one I had for 1 year in graduate school at the University of Americas outside of Mexico City. I was recruited to play there. Here it was very interesting culture for me. I came from a predominantly Hispanic, very impoverished neighborhood to a Lutheran, very white Midwestern kind of student body. And with a whole different value system, a whole way of dress, of talk. Everything was different. And so, I mimicked it to fit in. Kind of dressed the way they did the crazy things they like to do. Drank their kind of beer. And that, for me, that was a wide open education to middle America. And to middle income values, middle income dress, middle income diction. It's later when the next year I go to the most affluent school in the Southern Hemisphere, which is called University of Americas, and now I get introduced socially into affluence. Dramatic affluence. The gal, my best friend, Shelly Enriquez, her dad was the head of the UN at the time. I'm talking dramatic affluency. That's who I was, studying with. Her friend, Joanne Calabresi, went to Vanderbilt. Shelley was at Georgetown. And they were both their best friends for a semester of cultural exchange, which means they were going to knock off for a year. And her daddy was the top senior ranking Exxon official for South America. We had another guy, and his name was Juan Manuel Garcia Perez Gonzalez, 6 names. A little short, very handsome-looking guy, and he gets up there and introduces himself, and he says that he just graduated from Stanford. He's there to get a graduate degree in petroleum engineering, and his family owns an oil cartel in Venezuela. At Texas Lutheran, at that time where your soccer field is, we had a cornfield. You can imagine. I was like, wow. That school offered 2 scholarships to every country in America. That was the student body. Brooks, in his book, The Social Animal, writes how social education is more powerful than an academic one when you go to college. If you hang out with potheads, you end up being a pothead. It's social. If you end up with drunks, you end up being a drunk. It's just the way it is. It forms you. So for me, Texas Lutheran was kind of the perfect environment. It was small, it was Midwestern Lutheran values, it was totally opposite from my, beat 'em and shoot 'em other culture, where there are no words used, but more blows. It's a whole different experience. And then the affluency was just dramatically different. It was at that experience socially that I knew that I could do whatever they could do. It just so happened they were born with a lot more capital than I was. That was the problem. For you to do what they were doing, you had to have a dramatic amount of capital. Or did you? The question was how? So I would say in the formal education, it was very lacking. Here's what it lacked. It didn't have the great books curriculum. Some of you can look up the great books by Denby. I highly recommend you read it. And it's every major great book. So there's the University of Chicago opened it as a curriculum. Princeton mimics it. They don't call it that because academia rails against it. Columbia still embraces it because they don't care what academia says. Boston University calls it their general studies curriculum. You can go online and see the course offerings. What are you going to see? Machiavelli, Aristotle, Plato, the old Bible, the version of the Bible, the new version, not to convert you, but to educate you on what Christianity is or is not. Jane Eyre, Virginia Woolf, it's a lighthouse, so you can understand the feminist revolution. They were both feminists. It's the only revolution this world has ever gone through that's been successful, is the feminist revolution. If you don't read those books, I would say your education is lacking. I always tell people that education is the first floor on a building, and it can take you all the way to the top floor. A certification, engineer, doctor, all noble professions, teachers, they'll get you not to the top floor. Sorry. They won't. And if you manage to get to the top floor, if you haven't read the great books, when you open the door, they're going to tell you, I'm sorry, 4 stories down. They'll bump you back. If you don't believe me, ask Charles Butt what he's reading today. Ask Bartel Zaki what he's reading today, and they would have all read the great books. Probably more than once. I'm on my 3rd reading of War and Peace. That's one of my 5 right now. I get so much out of it now than I did 10 years ago, last time I read it. Because I'm in a different place. No great tests means no leadership skills. Just does. No concept of society. When I read War and Peace, I learned society. What society? An affluent society. The one I didn't know. It's called an education, learning what you don't know. You don't develop a concept of one unless you do some real thinking of and reading on who you are and what you want to be. How will you define success for yourself? How? Or who? Why are you here? That's what these books are about. No deep perspective on yourself. You'll have no knowledge on success. Even if you find it, you probably won't even know how to keep it. And that happens all the time. 90% of restaurants, I saw restaurants, 90% of restaurants go out of business in the first 5 years. In our company, I have the 5-year rule. I won't sell any restaurant if they've been in business 5 years. They all go, I'm a little acorn. I'm going to be a big oak. Well, call me when you're the oak, Why? Because of 90% loss, 90% receivable loss. You lose your shirt. Doctors open restaurants. They don't know anything about restaurants. A guy finds success. He doesn't know what success is. I knew him. He had a great restaurant, $5 million restaurant. He buys 20 cars. Malik Rose. How about Jay Leno? How many cars do you have? Anybody know? How many?
Hundreds.
How many?
Hundreds.
Is that success? How would you know? How would you know? You're uneducated. You got to get up on it. No knowledge of life, certainly no knowledge of marriage. You want to know about marriage? Read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Eyre. I highly recommend it. No knowledge of love. None. Tell me a course you take, formal now, not outside the classroom. At Texas Lutheran, it says, come learn about love. Marriage 101. Where is it? Let's go. Where is it? Anybody know? Should women go? Should men go? Who should go first? No course. Even if you're successful in business and your personal life is a wreck, guess what happens to the business? It mimics your life. Always does. Always does. You marry wrong, you pay the price. The way it is. No courses. And no knowledge of business. Some people think that business is money. Profit is like oxygen. Y'all are breathing. Are y'all consciously breathing? But do you have to breathe? What happens if you don't breathe? That's what happens to a business without profit. But does it live to breathe? Do you live to breathe? Well, I guess you do, don't you? Is that all you do? What else do you do? Now you eat, right? Well, how much can you eat? How much? What's enough? You have to answer those questions. I have to answer. I have $1 billion company. How much do I eat? How much do I take out of it? What do you think? What do you think? How much should I eat? More? Probably less. But I'll meet 350-pound owners. You'll meet them. And somebody with 100 cars. You'll meet them. They don't stop eating. It's an amazing thing. You have to get yourself prepared as you start this journey once you leave school. Once you leave school. In contrast, let me talk a little bit about athletics. Now, I was a student athlete. There's no way I was going to be a professional. Why do I know? Because everybody knows if you're a pro or not. If you don't believe me, go pick up a golf club and tell me you're a pro. No, you're not a pro. Of course not. Of course not. If you haven't been an All-American, playing for Stanford or somebody like that, you're not going to be a pro in golf either. You're just not. So we all know, right, what a student athlete is. Let's not get confused about it. Texas Lutheran never recruited student athletes. Professional athletes. Never. How could you? We're a mid-major at best. No, we recruited student athletes. That's what I was. So what did I learn? A lot. I already told you what I didn't learn, right? But what did I learn? Well, I was an incubator on leadership. Because when you're on the court by yourself, it's no different than if you have a solo on the violin or if you're a ballet dancer on stage. You have a lead role. And you have to do it perfectly, right? And everybody's watching. You can't, go in the stands and hit somebody like the Oklahoma State guy did. You can't do it. You can't do what Johnny Football did. You can't do it. You can't go off and act like a nut and think it's not going to cost you millions when you get drafted. You will pay the price for being so out of control. So it does teach you certain disciplines. Teamwork, for sure. Have to, especially in a team sport. It doesn't matter what team sport it is. That's the way it is. You're only as good as your worst player. You know how to live in rules. Business is all rules. You don't make them. You better pay your taxes. Rules. Gotta obey all the labor rules. Hello. Nobody asked you if you liked them. Just you better do them. All that in a team sport, you learn all that. You learn how to dress, you learn how to talk. Everything is taught. Competitiveness. Ooh. I think it was Homer that wrote that men were built to endlessly rip the heads of their competitors off and pull at their entrails and their lungs as they win. as the point of the spear. Kind of interesting, huh? Well, athletics is kind of like that. We used to warm up and they'd say, pretend there's a piece of meat thrown on the court and who's going to get it? It's no different, no different. Follow the rules though. So it teaches you how to win. It teaches you how to be a role model. It better. One time Cholula left, and it was a senior year, and I was the captain of the team, and we went and played Georgetown and Southwestern, and we had 4 returning starters. We were picked to win. We had set the year before the conference win, and the most record wins for Texas Lutheran, and we had ever in the history of the school, and we had 4 returning starters. And we have a new coach who is horrible. Horrible. I think it lasted 3 or 4 years, and they finally fired. And we went 50%. I mean, we lost half our games, and we won half our games. The most miserable experience of my life. I just couldn't. I'd never been on a losing season in my entire life. It was just catastrophic for everybody. Everybody was decimated, especially those seniors. I mean, that was going to be our year to go to a national tournament. We were picked number 1 in the conference. Never been picked number 1 in the conference. And we were at Southwestern, and I was very frustrated. And this official made a bad call, and I told him real bad stuff, not repeatable. Well, he happened to be the head of all the officials for the conference. Nice. So he writes Texas Lutheran, the president. Oh, sorry. I'm at Reby, and he comes and sits next to me. He says, Al, I heard you had a certain conversation with the head of the officials for the conference. I can't believe you did that. It's so unlike you. Did you? I told him that you didn't. I said, well, oh, I kind of did. It's been a hard year. He said, well, what am I to do now? I was thinking, well, He said, well, I think you need to write a letter of apology. And if he accepts it, I think you're okay. But if he doesn't, then there have to be other consequences. So I wrote him a long letter. And he wrote me back one of the best letters I've ever read. I still have it. And he told me that losing and knowing how to lose and having the character to lose was as important as winning. And that's an education. I never used to know what to say when people would say good game. What do you say? I was kind of all shy and kind of a mess, you know. Like, I had a friend of mine, and he was very successful basketball player. Didn't play here, but he was an All-American elsewhere. So every time people would greet him, just shower praise on him, you know what he would always do? He'd always look at him in the eyes and say, thank you. And I asked him one time, I said, why do you do that? He says, well, because think about somebody that takes the time out of their life to compliment you. Think about how much effort that takes and how unselfish an act it is. And then you would smile and thank them. He's right. Of course he's right. So I started doing that after that, every time, you know? And I still do it today. Somebody comes up, thank you. Learning how to act. All that kind of transferred into my career. All that. That's my education, socially. The academic part started with the reading. That's where it starts. And I call that post-formal. There was 2 things that happened. The only way that you can become affluent if you're not born with capital is if you can sell. Because selling is the lifeblood of any business. If you're a banker, you got to sell. You got to get accounts. If you're in investment banking, you got to have a customer. My favorite definition of a company is not an idea. This never is. A company is a customer. One. You can have all kinds of ideas for a business, but if you don't have a customer, you don't have a company. You have a customer, you have a company. That's simple. In our case, we have 6,000 customers now. Pretty amazing, huh? So you have to think of it along those ways. So how do you gain a customer? Well, that's called selling. And selling, none of us are born to sell. We don't come out screaming, I'm a salesman. Watch, I got to watch, can't watch this stuff. No, we come out crying, and they need to be changed. So salespeople are taught. Most of them are self-taught. My favorite book is Major Account Selling Strategy by Neil Rackman. Love that book on selling. Love it. My next favorite one is I'm trying to think of it. It's written by this young lady, and she gets called in to make Beyond Deal Making. That's the name of the book. And what she writes, she's a person you call in, Fortune 100 company, when a deal is not getting done, they call her in to close the deal. She's a closer. You ought to read that book. Oh, I gave it to one of our Cox & Smith is our law firm, largest law firm in San Antonio. And Dan Webster, who was then the managing partner, he was stuck. He read the book and he made the sale. He sent me a note back. God, it was awesome. I was stuck selling a customer, and it's Stripes. Anybody from South Texas? They're going crazy. You can look them up. I mean, they're just a jewel. And wonderful. The Sesser family out of Corpus Christi. And I gave their vice president that book, Beyond Deal Making, because I was struggling with him, struggling to make the sale. They'll buy $100 million from us this year. And I gave him the book. And he read it. I couldn't believe it. Most people don't read. A guy actually read it. And he changed his whole company. He's now been promoted. He's senior vice president. Amazing, huh? One little book called Beyond Deal Making. So salespeople are made. Don't think of all these cliches and the guy can talk faster, the gal can look better. Hell with all that. You can really learn, but you have to have formal training, and you have to find the right training. Otherwise, you're kind of a bullshitter. Nobody wants that. I mean, it's very tiresome. You're kind of like the car guy that comes out there and says, I got to talk to my manager. No, that's all right. The hell with that. What the hell is that? I mean, really? So salespeople have a bad stigma because there's so many bad ones. But don't let that detract you. Don't. So I was real lucky. I got with this company at the time. It was called James River, and they were a paper manufacturer selling disposable goods to the restaurant industry. And the best training outfit at the time was Psychological & Associates, and they were the trainers for IBM Blue. For those people that are older than me, that was before. That would have been like the trainers for Google today or Amazon. That's what IBM was then. And so that same firm that was training their executives, which was impossible to get that job, they only hired Ivy Leaguers. So, for sales, by the way, Big Blue it was called. And they all wore coat and ties, white shirts. You could see them, they were like FBI guys. But Psychological & Associates was their training arm. And I went on that training program for a year and a half. I went in with a group of 80, and I graduated number one in the class. Never had graduated any class number one ever. Ever. But I did that one. So that was my first 2 years. Then I joined Labatt. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the company at that time. It was a third-generation company. We've now been in business over 100 years. At that time, we were an arm of a bigger company. The bigger company sold grocery stores. Weiss in Seguin back then, Sack and Pack. And they kind of died, that customer base died when the supermarkets, the big stores came out, like H-E-B, Target, Walmart, killed all these neighborhood grocery stores and so smaller supermarkets. So they were kind of like, if you look down the road for that company, which was the big parent company, they were going to go out. That industry was just going to end up with only one supplier to all of them, and that's what happened. So this food service company was real small. It was like about 8 million, had 6 little trucks, 28 employees, not doing much. And so that's where I ended up, because that was my customer. So I had sold them, and they bought me, and we sold some paper, cups, napkins, that kind of stuff. But here was the key. The third generation owner, my partner and mentor, Blair, he's about 7 years older than I am. Well, here's the kicker. He's a Princeton grad, Oxford, graduated with a 1, and UVA PhD. And he's teaching English at UT. In the summer, they don't pay anything to professors at UT, so they don't, trust me. So he was making money in the summer selling groceries, working for Daddy. So that's who I go in with. He'd never taken a business course in his life. I hadn't either. And so here's the two guys that get together. But he had read all the great books. His dissertation was on Faulkner. Published now, you can Google it, Blair Labatt, you can read it. It's a literary work, very acclaimed. And the first thing I did when I went to work for him is I read every book on Faulkner. That's kind of weird, huh? Who does that? What does that have to do with selling groceries? Everything, because every strategic talk was talked in Faulknerlese. It's all relating to those stories. We could communicate when nobody else could communicate. We could communicate in front of you, you didn't know what the hell we were talking about. And it was groceries, but it was Faulkner, but it was groceries. And so we start answering all these other questions that I started with at the beginning. The concept of one, having a deep perspective, what defining success in life, in marriage, in love, certainly in business. Very different. Now, I'm going to talk about getting in trouble. What the book talks about is, this book states, it's leaders at all levels, it states that your most productive years in life are between the ages of 25 and 50. After you turn 50, you start to wane. I'm 58. I just fell down and broke my rotor cuff 6 years ago. I'm definitely waning. I'm telling you, if you don't believe me, come take my pain away on my shoulder. What the book says is that you have five-year iterations. 5. Every 5 years, you have to get in trouble. Why? Why does it say that? The brain is the laziest muscle in your body. It is the laziest. You have no idea how lazy the brain is. I'm going to explain to you how lazy it is, and then you can run down with me on this rabbit trail. It sees TV incessantly. That's how lazy it is. You exercise your biceps more when you drink the beer watching the TV than you do your brain watching the TV. You do. You do. It's just basically lazy. Movies. Novels. You know, like the little romance novels, like, you know, I got kidnapped in Ireland or whatever. Beer. Hobbies. Hunting. Golf. Sports. Lazy. Lazy. The only time you grow brain cells is when you have to. If you get thrown in the deep side of the pool without any floaties, your brain teaches you how to swim. This guy wrote this book, and it was called I Wish I Knew Now What I Knew Then. And he was very successful, very accomplished academically, went to Oxford. It's a true story. He's 72 years old. He writes this book. He got knighted, British, And he wanted to write this book. He wanted to write this book that said, I had all this education. And he said, I want to tie that education to my success in business. So that's the book. Well, he kind of starts writing it, and he realizes that he had a warehouse full of knowledge, but he very rarely did any withdrawals in his career from what he had learned in school. And so he was befuddled by that, and he said, I don't get that at all. And so then he asked another question of himself. He said, well, when have I been the most successful? And he found out that every time he got in trouble, he was successful. He found his way out of trouble. You will not grow brain cells if you don't get in trouble. I'm telling you, you will not. You can start in a position in a company and be there 25 years. If you do the same job, your brain zeroed out for 25 years. You're not growing any brain cells. You already know how to do the job. You're just going to be doing more of it. It's not growing any new brain cells. If you really want to grow brain cells, you don't read. You already know how to read. You learn how to play the oboe. That's hard. That's hard. That's really difficult. Reading, your brain already knows how to read. Crossword puzzles don't help Alzheimer's. Playing the oboe does. Forces you to grow brain cells. You already know how to read. Your brain already knows that. So the trick is, how many times are you going to get in trouble? If you're truly successful, you get in trouble about every 3 years. Or 2.5. You want to double the success during that 25-year period. And that's all you got, by the way. You don't have any more. 25 years, five-year iterations. So let me talk to you about trouble. Here's the first time I get in trouble. Well, I joined a company. We double the sales, we triple the sales, and we're losing money. And we can't make payroll. And you can grow yourself out of business very easily. You outstrip all your cash reserves. You're not making the profits that anybody would loan you money on because you're not capable of paying them back. That's why you ran out of money the first time, because your cash flow isn't supporting your growth. And your warehouse is expired, and your people are expired, and you can't afford to pay more, and you can't build more warehouse because you're not making enough money. Make sense? That's called being in trouble. Here's a real problem. Blair had been giving me the P&L. I need some water. Do we have any water? Or anything to drink? So he had been giving me the P&Ls for every month. You know, he put them on my desk, and every month I put them in the bottom drawer because I didn't know how to read a P&L. How would I know how to read a P&L? Never took a math course in my life. I thought it was dumb to take math when you could take Spanish. Seriously. I mean, who does that? So that day we couldn't, make payroll. We could borrow one last million, I remember, and that was it. The family would have to loan it. The family shouldn't loan it because we had demonstrated we couldn't pay it back anyways. It's called a bad loan. I told Blair, I didn't tell him I hadn't read the P&L. I didn't tell him I didn't know how to read the P&L. But I did make a stupid comment. I said, how did this happen? I've been giving you the P&L every month, Al. So it was about midnight. We were at a hospital. One of our employees was in the hospital in critical condition or something. So I start crying. I'm driving home. I mean, I just can't believe I hired all these people. The company's going boom, 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 and now I can't pay them. How am I going to tell them I can't pay them? I told Blair, well, maybe you could go to monthly pay or biweekly pay or buy some cash flow. How much cash flow would that buy? Not that much. We weren't going to buy $1 million. So I went, instead of going home, went to the office and I read the P&Ls, all of them, till the next morning. And I could read a P&L. That's called being in trouble. By the way, I have read the P&L every month since, 30 years later. And we're debt free. We're the 10th largest company in the country. We pay all growth out of cash flow. Take that. Take that. We don't borrow anything. My banker hates me. We just have cash reserves. That's called reading the P&L. If you don't have to, the brain is lazy, it won't grow. Will not grow. Trust me, it will not grow. It won't. Won't. I like the book because I give it to my young executives. And if I really have an A player, if you want to know what an A player is, read this. It's called Top Grading. This is read by all major companies trying to get them to hire A players. How much, do you know how much an A player makes a year? It tells you in this book. How much? Anybody want to guess? Come on. How much? A player. How much? Guess. 150. A player. If I wanted to be interviewing to be an A player, I would read this book, wouldn't you? Because this is all the answers to every interview you're going to have. By the way, there's another book called Top Grading for Sales. They actually made one for salespeople. What a concept. You really need to read it. But if you're an employer, you really need to read it. Reading. If you're running a university, you need to read it. It's actually a how-to. How many books are how-to? None of them. Most of them are just kind of, you know, you keep looking for the answer and you're supposed to make it up. Well, hell, I knew that when I bought the book. I knew I didn't know the answer. What the hell is that? It's a trick. But not this one. It's really good. Tocqueville talks about in Democracy for America. I highly recommend you read that book. It's just wonderful. It will teach you our country and our laws and how we work. And if you're going to work and be successful in this country in any kind of a high-level position, you better know our country. I would really recommend Democracy in Tocqueville. Democracy in America by Tocqueville. And you'll find he's much quoted by many politicians who never give him credit. The little sods. But they don't have to because most people are uneducated. They don't even know Tocqueville. They can get away with 90% of the population. But if you read it, they won't get by you. You're going to call them out. You say, that's bullshit. Let me correct that quote. He says, whatever one does, it is impossible to raise the standard of enlightenment in a nation above a certain level. Whatever facilities are made available for acquiring information and whatever improvements in teaching technique make knowledge available cheaply, men will never educate and develop their intelligence without devoting time to the matter. He says that our country is the only country in the world that always pushes to the middle. 2% of wealth is 80% of the population. I would argue that your readers is the 2%. But that means that 98 are going to say that they should be in the middle. They read too much, they own too much, they have too much. You got it? And the people that are poor want the middle. Tocqueville says that our country always races to the middle. Don't let your career race to the middle. Because it will. You're in it. You will seek balance. You will seek the middle. You go, I'm not going to be a crazy guy and work 70 hours a week. Are you nuts? I'm not going to read all those stupid books. Are you nuts? The worst thing can happen is you make a little money. Let me talk about a little money. 2 cars, a garage, and a family, and 2 kids. That's a little money. Very distracting. 2-story house, more distracting. 3 cars, very distracting. You work less, called self-satisfied. Why? Because you have what everybody else has, right? The rest, not so much. You don't have to work that hard. And remember, the brain is lazy. So he says, therefore, the greater or less ease with which people can live without working sets inevitable limits to their intellectual progress. It just does. But we are so affluent, this country. It's so affluent. I had lunch the other day at Cappy's on Broadway in San Antonio for 2, and I paid $60. Can you imagine that for lunch for 2 for $60? Who does that? Well, the restaurant was packed. That's who does it. We are so affluent. You don't have to do much. I have a doctor. He's an ENT. Great certification. Been out 20 years, hasn't cracked a book. I have another doctor, John Hopkins, dramatically well-read, ENT. He diagnoses my symptom when the other one couldn't. What a difference. Read, unread. The other guy can't keep an office. The other guy can't buy an office big enough. He's called a healer. Only 2% of doctors are healers in America. Only 2% heal you. 50% of diagnoses are wrong. Did you know that? 50% are wrong in our country. And we tolerate it. Why? Because we are the big middle. So you kind of have to stop and get out of that. I like this quote by Ruby Payne, and she wrote a book called Crossing the Tracks for Love. Odd title, huh? She also read this book. I love her. She's an educator. She does a lot of curriculum for trying to teach kids in poverty in public school level. And here's a book. It's called Hidden Rules of Class at Work. I highly recommend you read Ruby Payne, especially if you were a first-generation college student. Especially if you're a middle-income background. Especially, you should read this book. She's the only one I know that actually talks about it very, very frankly. Let me give you just a little touch. Money, the value of money. In poverty, it's communal. The family, everything goes in a pot, it's spent for whoever needs it. I know, that's the way I was raised. Paid the rent since I was 6 years old, selling newspaper, $40 a month. It's communal. I was raised that way. In middle income, it's budgeted. In affluency, it's invested. Relationships. The value of relationships. In poverty, relationships are more important than money because you ain't got any. So, you know, your friend fixes your car and you fix their PC, and it's all relationships. There's no money. When you lose, you know, when they throw you out of your house, you go live with them. They feed you. It's all relationships. It surpasses everything. Everything. The number one value in poverty is relationships. That's why it's so hard to get kids to go to college and leave their families, because they're a producing asset. You're violating their most unbelievable value. If they really believe that education is a way out, that's a middle income value, by the way, then they would be in middle income. They wouldn't be in poverty if they had that value. Why argue with them? Everybody wants to change the parents that are in poverty. You can't change their value system. That value system is hardwired. That's why they're in poverty. You might stand a chance with the kids. If they read this, then they can get out. In relationships for affluent, guess what? It's all connections. I invite the chief of police to my house for the Christmas party. The head of the FBI. The bank president. Connections. They're still friends. You have to learn. That way when you get to the top floor, you're not kind of like, when they tell you you're on the wrong floor, no, I'm in the right floor, thank you. You know, you have to do that, or you will get thrown down. Here's a quote from her. Moreover, it's important to understand the purpose of work at the executive level is not the same as mid-management level. If you look at the following chart, it's in that book, mid-management is about keeping track of projects, tasks, and so on. But the executive level is about keeping track of systems, connections. Where do you get that education? I never saw that course offered. Ever. Ever stop to think about why it's not offered? I do. I created a class like that in my own company because I promote blue-collar workers. Well, I got to change their value system if they're going to get into a white collar. You know, they got to get rid of the stupid piercings and the tats and the stupid cap. And it's not a middle-income value. It's definitely not an affluent one. I can't have a manager because a manager is totally middle-income values. Completely, like your law is, like your courtroom is. It's all middle-income values. Like your school is all middle-income values. It is. It is. So if I'm committed to promoting blue-collar employees, then I got to educate. There is no course offered. It isn't. It should be. It's not. It's not. Aristotle says that there's 5 senses, that there's 5 pleasures. Everybody, you read these unbelievable authors, and they all are compelled to discuss what happiness is. So in the pursuit of answering that question, he said that there's 5 pleasures in the world, and they're all related to senses. So he says that, and he says only 5. There you go. So whether, I don't know, it's his book. So he says one is taste is pleasure to the mouth. Well, that's the organ, that's the sense. A rose is pleasure to the nose. Music is pleasure to the ears. A vista. You ever wonder why golf courses sell out? Houses on the coast sell out? Always? No matter why they're recession-proof? Because it's pleasure to the eye. It's one of the 5 pleasures. The other one is skin, the sense. So, it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. If you're holding hands with a loved one, that's one pleasure. If you're eating and you love the food, that's one. And you have the radio on, and it's your favorite song, he says 3 out of the 5, you're in euphoria. Or you can be in an Italian villa on the Italian lakes, Lake Como in Switzerland, being served, looking at a vista with a violin playing, and I would argue both are equally happy. That's the one in the Starkey Park. 5 senses. Isn't that interesting? That's Aristotle. Something for you to think about. Because the pleasure is the ultimate enemy of the mind. It pursues it like an addiction. Like an addiction. It'll just destroy you if you let it. You have to be very careful about it, or it will. My favorite saying in business is, how does it go? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's what this is about. That's what Aristotle said. It's the abuse of pleasure. So you have to think about it, and you have to learn. Now, last one, innovation. Well, I think that differentiating, well, let me give you a basketball story. I was not the fastest guy, and certainly not the tallest. And I wasn't dark enough. So, kind of tough, huh? But I could do one thing. I was the best defensive player on the team. Actually, I was the best defensive player in the conference. Why is that? Well, I studied the opponent. So if he was a right-hander, Jim Schuler, who was an awesome ball player, very smart ball player, he taught me to always force the man left if he was right-handed. Makes sense. If you force him left, you own him, Al. So I would literally, when I played a guy, I would cut his right arm off. I mean, I cut it off. I mean, if he put his right arm to come right, I would cut it off. It was not coming up. I would actually force it to hit me and knock me down. He was not going to go right. You understand? Not right. Never. Never right. I also knew that there were certain spots he would shoot from in the court. We had Bobby Joe Reed at the time, playing for St. Mary's University. He went on to play for the Houston Rockets with Malone. You might have seen him on TV. I had to guard him. He played for Clemens. Somebody here was telling me that played at Clemens, or was from Clemens. He played at Clemens. 6'3" guard recruited at St. Mary's University. Every year that guy grew an inch. By my senior year, he was 6'9". Damn, I was still 6'5". Oh, there was not a God. He had forsaken me on the height department. So I had to guard him every year. 3-time All-American. And he was an inch taller every time. And of course, they would all set picks for him because he was a star. So I had to stop. Well, I knew he always liked 3 spots to shoot from. He was not going to shoot from that spot against us. And he never did. He had 8 points that game. Totally frustrated. He could shoot over there, not here. I mean, I knew where they were. Force left. So I took that into business, and I said, force him left. So some of you might have studied Cisco, my competitor, $50 billion, right? We're $1 billion. You think $1 billion's much? It ain't nothing. In today's business, you have to be big enough to innovate. It's like David and Goliath. The stone is software. The giants before you. It's all software. It's the dramatic equalizer. So how are you going to use software to make your competitor go left? Oh, think about it that way. Or how are you going to use software to keep them off the shooting spot? So if you look at Cisco and you study, which I have forever, and one of my favorite things about a competitor is, if you study them long enough, you become just like them. You don't want to study to become like them. You only want to study them to shut them down. Does that make sense? Like a player. You only want to study them to kill them, to shut them down. So they do private label. They do their own label. They do. I don't. I'm the only company in the country that doesn't have my own label. The only one. I'm either real smart or real dumb. When we were 8 million, everybody thought we were really dumb. Not so much anymore. I sell the highest quality product, totally validated, no games. Private label, Cisco has 2 customers. They have their restaurants and they have their shareholders. But they really only have one customer. Their customer is the shareholder. You don't do private label for your restaurants. I mean, why would you deceive them on the quality? Why would you control the price and manipulate it up endlessly? Why would you do that? Only because you're going to make a pile of money. Because you're doing it at their expense. You're harvesting their business every time you slip their quality. Every time you slip their quality and you keep the price the same, you make more money. For who? For your shareholders. Go on their website. All they're going to talk about is their latest acquisitions. They're going to convince you to buy their stock. If I was you, I would buy their stock, but I would not buy groceries from them. I wouldn't. Not if you want to stay in business. If you're going to stay in business, you better buy the highest quality products. You better buy Bluebell ice cream. You better buy the highest quality product, or you won't. If you want a niche on quality. Tocqueville, another, love this quote from Alexis de Tocqueville. Our job is not to blend into similarity, which is equal to mediocrity, but to embrace high quality projects. So my whole industry has gone to private label, all trying to attract the shareholder, and I'll compete Google return. They all have. They all blended into similarity, which is really equal to mediocrity. The high quality project is the food I sell. It is. Land Lakes butter, Heinz ketchup, not, XYZ ketchup you've never heard of. Kitchen Recipe, Red Dog. I don't know what the hell they're coming up with names. It's unbelievable. You go to Cisco, now they have a block and barrel private label. We call them Gucci labels because the consumer caught on to their lousy private label junk, so they upgraded the quality slightly, and they came up with all these names like cars, like Escalade. I don't know what the hell that is. Where do they come up with these names for cars? Same thing they did on labels. Solana. What the hell is a Solana? Well, that's a line of tomato sauce for Mexican restaurant. What the hell is a Solana? I don't get it. But they're confusing the consumer endlessly to think they're paying for quality at a quality price and making the difference. And if you don't believe me, you go to the grocery store and buy stuff now, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll live the decline in quality, the decline in choice even. So I'm kind of the other way. You see where I'm going? I'm cutting the right off. What's the right? Private label, right? Bam, not here. I go into an account, out. No. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Why? And then the restaurants do phenomenally well. Next thing you know, you're at $1 billion. Going to $1.5 billion. Pretty amazing, huh? Simple formula. Innovation is always about making your competitor go left. Differentiation. There should be a course in business in college, and it should be titled Differentiate Business 101. That's it. If everybody can do that, y'all get an A. You only have to come to class for the rest of the semester. Simple A. Done. Close your books. Find a way to innovate. Find a way to differentiate, find a way to innovate it. The other thing is we wrote software. All of our competitors are buying software off the shelf. I had a competitor that's like 15 billion in sales in the Midwest. Wonderful people. And it was just when everybody was trying to decide whether or not they were going to write software or not write software. And he described, and we're in logistics, and so we have to have the software to route our trucks and guide our driver through, maps and everything so that they don't get lost and record everything they're selling. And we have all these federal requirements we got to comply with for hours worked and not worked to protect, all the roads against insane cocaine drivers. So we have to do it. So it takes. So everybody's thinking about, well, I think this guy told me, he says, Al, I think you're all wet, Al. I don't think you should be writing software, that kind of software. I mean, all of us have trucks. We all buy the trucks. They're all Cummins trucks, Cummins engines, all the same kind of trailers. We don't compete on trucks, Al. We don't. We should just band together and buy it off of one guy. It's just drivers. He says, software, he says, is like a river. You don't have to own the river. You don't have to own the river. You can just go down the river with everybody else. Just ride along in the same stream, the same swim lane. I was like, this guy must own the company that he's trying me to join in with everybody else, which, by the way, he did. So what do? We write software. Okay, so how are we going to force it to go left? There's this novel software that was written at Los Alamos in New Mexico for the atomic bomb. And it was software by these engineers that was designed to predict an outcome when there's too many moving variables. It's called Monte Carlo. You can Google it. So young Blair went to Princeton, read all the great books, English major, like his dad, who was an English professor, and he did one better. He had a minor in computer science. Ooh. Wow. What does he do? He knocks off Monte Carlo software to be able to do routing for 6,000 customers. We can run simulations in sub-second speed on all kind of variations for delivering one route, all cost everything as fast as I just told you. My competitor can't do that. It's my single biggest expense. I have an automated analyst tool, sub-second speed. Just this week, I saw another presentation by another one of our software teams, and they're able to tell me the profit, a P&L for each individual customer, 6,000, in sub-second speed. I mean, I can hit it, and I can give it to you, and it's flawless for the last 4 weeks. And you can change a range of dates, a week, a year. Who does that? Who does that? Nobody does that. Nobody does. They can be 50 billion. They ain't got it. The beauty about writing software, talk about differentiating, is you safeguard your secrets. I'm not selling it. You can't buy it. It's not going to happen. You want to compete against me? You better get your guys in your room, and you better start writing your own interface to Monte Carlo and applying it. Good luck. Good luck, you bunch of hacks. Y'all are lazy anyway. So differentiate. Innovation, the road less traveled. It's endless. It's always that way. But to me, it's very simple. It's just like basketball. No different. No different. None. You just do what you know you need to do. A great book for you to read right now, and I think all of you should read it. It's called The Phoenix Project. And that book is just out. There was a book before that called The Goal. Some of you might have heard, you've heard The Goal by Garthright? Goldberg? What's his name? Thank you. Another reader, huh? Goldright. I bet he's never tell you what he reads. I always him, I'd pluck him. I'd say, give me your whole damn list and quit screwing around. Really, what the hell, tell us all this other junk? Just give me your books. Anyway, that's a great book, by the way, that one. But it's an old book. It's about how to, it's a theory of constraints in a production facility. Well, this book, Phoenix Project, is a theory of constraints in a software company. And you will find yourself in it. And here's where you will find yourself. I would say the executive of the future will look very different than the ones you see today. They will manage programmers. And they will be really good at it. And they will design software. What the book argues at the end is that the business now is software. And I go, wait a minute, business is software. Started thinking about that. Is that true? I've always looked at IT like accounting, kind of a real dull, boring job, but somebody has to do it, has to be super accurate. It ain't gonna be me. But you know, it gotta be right, because the bankers and the auditors, you got all these people on you, gotta be right. But so I look at software that way. In other words, you know, it has to work. My email has to work. That's about it. Well, when we first started writing software, we used to handwrite invoices, and then we go select them, put them on a truck, load them manually, of course. And so then we had a real novel thought. We were going to, instead of handwriting them, we were going to have a 7-digit number. We're going to put that in the computer, and that's going to print a form in the warehouse to go pull the order. So we have to read it out, and the handwriting's gone. And 10 key by touch was a real innovation. That's where you could do 10 key like this. I used to train customer service people to cover their eyes with a paper, and in about 2 hours they were proficient. That was a real skill, by the way. You hired 10 key by touch. People would interview and say, I can do 10 key by touch. Really? You're hired. So that was it. And then later on, you know, we developed little PCs. Telzon units was before PCs. And salespeople could actually put them in, and I give them to customer service to key punch. They could do their own key punching, and over a wire line, the order would come in. Well, today, and of course, software always goes down, right? Shouldn't, but it does, unfortunately. And so when it was going down, as we did these applications, as we wrote the software, different types of software, as we enhanced it endlessly, as the tools became more robust, they would break down, and we just, when it was 10 key by touch, well, they would handwrite them. When the program broke down with the salespeople, we would give them to the customer service people who were still there, and they could still do 10 key. But I got 6,000 customers now, and it's all on the web. And they're all using devices like this, mobile, to put their orders in. Or I'm getting a flat file transfer from their own POS system in their computer, you know, where they run their whole restaurant, all their supplies, directly flat file transfer. Okay, it is the business. I can't handwrite 6,000 orders. I can't do it. IT is the business. It just is. It is. I'm building robotics now. I have belts that replace 10 people, and they select all the groceries and put them all down. That thing goes down. I can't even get a forklift in the aisle. I can't. It's impossible. It cannot go down. Cannot go down. So I would argue IT is the business. It is the business. Georgia Tech just came up with a real interesting, very novel curriculum. And like 5 years old. Academia hates this kind of stuff because it's not research. There's not enough time to research. You know, so all the reasons why not to do it. But Georgia Tech has a real robust advisory team, business advisory team, and they have a real new president who's not from academia, and they did it. What did they do? They created a curriculum and a degree offering called threading. So I hired, stay with the thought, threading. Like a braid, you could even call it braiding. So I hired the best web company in the country. They're out of Genuine. You can Google them. They're doing it for Harvard right now. They did it for the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. They did it for Phillips Academy in Auburn. I mean, in Andover, Mass. I mean, it's just unbelievable. They did it for Titleist. You love what they're doing. You know what they do? They hire musicians and artists and teach them how to program. That is called threading. You see what they did? Did I go too fast? See what I did? So Georgia Tech is offering psychology and software. Why? Because you're going right into the mind. I'm going to have to hire a PhD in psychology. It would be really good if they knew how to program. Not so they would program, but just so they could direct my 20 hacks that can program. The unread ones. I'm telling you, threading. Engineers that can write software. Interesting, huh? So my next books will all be on software. I'm reading them. I am. I will. I have to. I have to. There's no choice. I have to do it. I have to. That'll be the future executive of tomorrow. Companies that don't do that will not be around. They will not be around. They're going to get totally, it'll be a tsunami. It'll go like that quickly. I created my young son, Matt, he went to BU. They have that curriculum, by the way. And I'm really on the grade books because I'm hoping to put it at UNT. I want to be the first university in Texas to do it. Head of the academic committee for University of North Texas. 38,000 kids, 5 schools in Dallas, and I'm determined. I'm doing it. But Princeton has it as well. So he comes in, he studies the business. What he's doing is he's writing an application where you don't need to sell it. So you can buy groceries from it like you would in Amazon. So you have your price and you can have your shopping cart and pay online. Never been in an industry. We've already done it. That's the stone, Goliath. Wham. He presented to 100 convenience stores in Houston. They were like, couldn't believe it. The money manipulates my price. And no commission reps with all these huge money that they're making on my backside. I buy nothing but national brand. My price stays the same for 6 months. I get 100% of the time. Tomorrow, if I ordered last night from any PDF, did I hear correctly? And there's no private label, you don't substitute? What the hell? Did I die and go to heaven? He's 26. History major to you. History major. Very well read. This history professor is renowned at BU. She is an expert on the Middle East, and she actually was hired by the government to advise them on policy in the Middle East. And very published author, very renowned, wonderful lady. I met her, and she asked Matthew, "What are you going to do with a?" They don't know what to do with a history degree. They think it's a dying degree. Like, how's it going to be rewarded? Who will hire history majors? You know what he says? He says a sales process is just like writing a paper in history. And it is. You got to communicate your thoughts effectively. I'm not as educated as him. I have to have him tell you the comparison. He'd knock you down. Really? He goes, yeah. One last story and then I'm done. Schools. We supply 85% of the schools in Texas. $400 million business. I can tell you the schools I don't sell. Easier than I can tell you the ones I sell. What do? We guarantee the price on every item they buy for the whole year. Why? Because they approve their budgets once a year. That's it. You tell your kids, you're going to pay whatever they pay now for lunch. I don't know, anybody know? $2, $2.30, whatever the number is. And they pay it all year. You can't come in mid-year and tell the parents you're going to go up. You have a riot. So it makes sense that if you set your budget and you have the price guarantee for the whole year, you just eliminated all your budget crisis. Beef goes up 20%, their price is still guaranteed. Hello. Interesting, huh? By the way, they want to buy nothing but quality too, because they're very interested in what their kids are eating. Flawless service. Nobody does that. Why won't my competitor guarantee the price? Because it doesn't give them a shareholder return robust enough. They want The flexibility. They don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to shoot from that spot. I don't want to. I want to go right. I don't want to go left. I'm not going left. Okay. Don't. Last thing is, readers are innovators. They are. They are. Always. Because of, the mind keeps developing and growing, and you develop a part of your mind called, let me think of what it's called. It's that word for when you solve a problem that you couldn't before. Insight. You can read about insight in another book called the Brain That Changes Itself. This is a real good one. This is Dr. Henry Cloud. Talks about the mind, necessary endings. Wonderful book to read. The employees, businesses, and relationships that all of us have to give up. The book will challenge you to put a stop to the things that have been getting in your way for a long time. All about changing your mind. And it's a how-to book, by the way. Beautiful book to read. And I love this quote. It's a little harsh, and it's Plato. And he says, people that don't read are evil. I would really strongly give you advice. If you, and I hope all of you get married, and I hope all of you have kids, but don't be a reader and marry a non-reader. Don't do it. Then you'll find evil. They won't like you. So it's important that you read and that you self-educate. And that's it. I don't know what you wanted from me today, but that's all I got. All right, fire away.
I like everything you said, Al, except that bit about you're done by 50. That kind of bothers me a little bit.
No, you start to WAN at 50. You start to WAN, and you do, but hopefully you're enlightened enough that you're able to communicate better with people and grow them faster and develop them better, and I hope. It's our only saving grace. We are WANing. I'm already forgetting insight. How can I forget insight? Damn, how does that? It's an early set-on of Alzheimer's. But I mean, you start to slip. I'm sorry, it happens to all of us. So, just the way it is. Hopefully we're enlightened. Yes?
I think after 50, you should be able to cause trouble rather than get in trouble.
True. Very true. Well said.
I want to ask you a product question.
Yes.
One of my favorite, okay, and they're not but maybe 2 or 3 times a year when I reward myself for this, but I think that that's one of the best rewards for good behavior on the road, like when I let
One of your favorite pleasures.
Yes, well, okay, so I reward myself by stopping at someplace like Buc-ee's maybe.
Yes.
And I buy one of those Bluebell ice cream sandwiches.
Yes.
That has chocolate chip cookies.
Know it well.
You sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When are they going to sell it to HEB? Do you have an exclusive so they won't market it through HEB?
Okay,
then there's hope for it. Because I want to be able to take these home to my pups who are both in wheelchairs, and I can't carry one of those suckers from Buc-ee's 75 miles to them. See? So I'm gonna start with the dry ice, I guess, next time on.
And careful with dry ice. It'll asphyxiate you if you put it in your car.
Yeah, I know. My students
Just
are
saying.
thrilled,
Yeah. You might not make it.
Okay, so
I wouldn't go down the dry ice route unless it's in the trunk, and careful when you open it.
okay, thanks for the advice. Thank you.
I think that today in America, now, I know probably shouldn't say this. You'll never invite me back for saying this. But I think one of the biggest decay in our society is the pursuit of profit. And that eliminates choice. You buy what I want to sell you. And that is the rot in our country. When for a few shareholder investors, we compromise the future for a quick return. It is a blight. It is a bubonic plague. It really is. I sell restaurants that are dramatically successful, offering unbelievable choices to their customers, okay? And they get, they go into a file, what's the first thing they do? Cut everything. You can do that for a little while. You better flip it quickly and get the hell out. Don't be the last one to turn off the lights. It's a real travesty. Real travesty. Real travesty. All for shareholder return. They were too fat. They were too heavy. They had paid too much for managers. They had too much perks, too much office. Dead fat, you hear all that crap. Short-term return. Everything 3 months. 6 months at the most. 2 years, 3 years. What, a file? 5-year file, you sell it in 3, right? If you're really good, a year and a half. You put 10 in there and 3 make it and they cover all your losses on 7. Am I going too fast? It's a blight on our country. In my opinion. I sell against it every day. I will not go there because that is the right. They have to go left in my world.
Students, start asking questions.
You talked about one of your key successes being some of your people, and you talked about them being well-read and having managers and being able to write code that others couldn't. So how do you keep your employees? Like, what's the average?
None. We have no turnover. 0, almost. Turnover is healthy. You never, it's like opening locations for a restaurant or business. You don't open 100% successful. I mean, if I hire 10 people, how many do you think are going to be really good? What do you think? You want to come up with a number? If you hire 10 people, how good? How good a hire are you? What, 50%, 30%? If you're 70, shit, come work for me. I mean, I'm telling you. So there's a lot of turnover. Sometimes it's because wrong fit, wrong type, whatever. That's why that book's so important. Top grading. That's what that's designed to command, is to increase your batting percentage on hiring A's. Assuming you have an A, okay? I'll answer that question that way, because that has to be the goal. Then why would you ever want to get rid of an A? No. I like hiring out of college. Why? Because if an A, that's my only chance at an A. Because once a company finds an A, they never let them go. If they're smart. They're just not going to let them go. They're not in the unemployed workforce. You're only interviewing the unemployable, in my opinion. So I like to hire from college, trying to get an A early. And that's how we built our company. We promote from within. Nothing's worse than joining a company and they say that they promote from within. You look at the 16-year officers, they've only been there 3 years, and the company's been in business 30 years. You're really a sap to join that company. They're going to promote you. It's not going to happen. I don't care what they tell you in the interview. It's not going to happen. When you interview, you got to look at the 5-year trend. You got to look at the age of all the executives. You got to see where they were promoted from. You better find a place you can be promoted. So I promote from within. Everybody. And when they don't leave. And I educate them. I never educate alone. All those books are read by all my executives. All of them. Every one. Every one. Every one. No exceptions. Right now, all the coding, all of them. Like, I got to learn how to code? Yes. Damn. My brain is lazy. I have to get them in trouble. And if you do that and your company is successful, and your belief is in having a rich company instead of a rich owner, there's a difference. There's a rich owner and a poor company. And there's a poor company and a rich owner. So we're a rich company with cheap suits, nice cars. So that's who we are. But no yachts, no ranch, no diversification in oil, none of that crap. You know, we're just employees of the company. It's a basic belief. You can read Marx. Karl Marx, by the way, that's one of the great books, which I highly think you should. Anyway, who else? Did I answer your question?
Yes. All right, so by listening to you talk and looking at y'all's website, you made it very clear that y'all have a huge focus on the customer experience and providing
Ooh, look at our website in 2 weeks.
great, great.
I'm glad you saw the old one because wait until you see what you see in 2 weeks. It's been 2.5 years in the making.
But great value to y'all's
That's gonna be
customers.
something.
So, with your great, since you've been there with your great growth and growth going forward, with future growth in mind, is that something y'all are worried about losing? Obviously, that's easier for a small company to have customer relations, and so is that something y'all are worried about losing? Becoming bigger, and if so, how do you keep it?
I think the customer relationship is endlessly changing. It used to be you had to have them. There was a survey taken 30 years ago in our industry. I remember it vividly like it was yesterday. And they asked the customer, listen, 9 reasons you buy from you. And the number one reason was the sales rep. 20 years later, it was number 7. Wow. That's interesting. I heard somebody here has a bank that is online only. No assets, no physical building. I think you were telling me that, right? Somebody. I think the gentleman left already. That's a different relationship in banking. All relationships are changing. Technology is totally changing it. I would say, to answer your question, you have to innovate and be ahead of everybody in this relationship change. You have to be. If you're not, then you're going to go like the distributor that distributed records and then disc tapes, and now it's all Pandora. See the difference? The relationship changed. It totally changed. And it changed that quickly. I can't use this hand, or I would have gone, bam. It happened that quickly. The world, your world, you might as well forget all the old ways of relationships, and you better think of new ones. And you better figure out how to do it. And I guarantee you it's going to be on this device. I guarantee it. I promise you it'll be here. Right now, for example, this morning I had a meeting, and I have a customer that has a need for, they're thinking about expanding in Louisiana and other states. They have this wonderful concept. You'll love it. It's called green. What a concept. And so he wants to be the Whole Foods for the restaurant business. He has 5 restaurants in Houston, highly successful. I mean, they're just packed. Everything is natural, wholesome. Line out the door. Going left, didn't he? You see what he did? Cut the right off. He went to where nobody else is. High quality offering. But he has to know that we can sell them in other states, which we can through software. We contract other mortar, not us, and we control all the invoice detail. Flat file transfers daily by exception. I know it has to be on alpha as well as numeric. Bam, I can do it. So the relationship, what do I do? Well, they need to talk to Kara, who wrote this system. She's the top manager, she's the vice president for us. How are they going to talk to her? How? Anybody want to guess? On their iPad. You're going to Skype it. Hi, I'm Kara. Do you want to talk about New Orleans? I interview now on Skype. Relationships are changing. I would say it's easier. If you're leading, if you're the point on the spear, if you're writing the software. If you are. Otherwise, no. Otherwise, no. I have a financial planner, you know. She's wonderful. She has a download feed into all my expenses, everything. She has all her spreadsheets. When I come in, she has me all set for the last 3 months before I even talk to her. That relationship changed. It's all software. Everything. She knows everything I did before I did it. You bought the furniture out. Oh, well, I did. Sorry. Relationships. And sub-second speed. So, yeah. But I think if you're not writing software, you should really be concerned about your relationship with the customer. You'll be like the guy that was making the discs or the cassettes. You're going to be looking for a job. In this book, the last chapter, it actually talks to investors. You'll like that. What else? Anybody else? Thank you.
You said that every 5 years, it's good for the brain to get into trouble. And that's
Five 5-year iterations.
5-year iterations. That's what helps you get into trouble. And it helps your brain learn. So do you have to actually go out looking for trouble, or does it come to you?
You have to find it. 3 years ago, because the brain's lazy, the more success you have, the lazier it gets. Really. I mean, why do I have to read 5 books? Seriously, do I have to really read 5 books? Think about it. I could just go for a drive. We could go for a drive to Victoria tomorrow. Let's just go. I have this wonderful S550 car. Oh, yeah, you got to get in trouble. So I went and bought a company in Albuquerque. I got in trouble. Losing money for 3 years. They sold nothing but private label. Oh. I got to go. And the whole state is used to buying nothing but private label. I have no idea what we are. They think we're like from Mars. Very slow. Got in trouble. What'd I do? I did what nobody else has done. You can go on YouTube and see the videos. Half of the state is Indian, Native American. Reservations. So that's half the state. I'm sorry I bought them. Reservations. I mean, that's the state I bought. That's where I'm at. That's the market share. That's it. Well, how do you do business with Indians? They have 19 casinos. Pumping oil. A lot of food. Ooh. Ooh. A lot of food. I mean, like by the truckload. A lot of coffee. Ooh. So I looked at it. They have a lot of grass, but it's arid. It can only support, one cow can only support 200 acres. So, but they have it. They have Navajo reservation is bigger than the state of Alabama, 25,000 square miles. That's a lot of cattle, even if it's 200 acres for one cow. So I developed a herd, and I created a brand. It's called Native American Beef, Navajo Beef brand, and then their own customer, because they have their own casinos. I have a processor. I can slaughter it. I can put it in the best feed line in America, certified Angus #1 in Oklahoma. I can slaughter it there. I can bring it back. I can cut it, have it to you perfectly next day in every casino, and you can set the price to yourself because I'm buying it from you. I got in trouble. I would have never done that if I hadn't gotten in trouble. I would have been in Texas, riding my car, talking to you guys. That's what I would have been doing.
Why don't you write a book?
Why don't I write a book? I don't know. Will it help me sell groceries?
It might.
Maybe. I don't know. I have to think about that. It's a question. I only sell groceries, by the way. That's what I do. My kids, when they were in college, they would go out to dinner with their friends, and their moms would come over and take them out to dinner and everything. What do you do, Matthew? They said, well, we're in the food business. We sell groceries. Oh, you sack groceries. She goes, yeah, that's right.
A book is just groceries.
But I don't know. Maybe in another life. Right now, I'm a little busy reading. But it's a novel thought. It's a novel thought. What caused me? Well, I was saying this story at lunch, and I'll repeat it. When Jim Schuler recruited me, I don't know if you know Jim Schuler. He's a teacher, professor here, coach forever. Did 2 stints. Anyway, he called me. He bumped into me at a gym in high school. We had come in 3rd in state. And I was the best defensive player in the state. And on TV, they had this guy that went to play for A&M and playing for Houston Kashmir, black guy. And I held him on TV. Can you believe that? They were all like, that guy could not shoot where he wanted to shoot from. That's all I know. It was a simple job. I didn't even have to score. I was off the hook. All I had to do was keep him from scoring. But I actually scored, so then that was the bonus, right? It was kind of like a cake with icing. So it was kind of a hot tamale for basketball. So Jim Schuler comes in. He thought I was going to go to St. Mary's University because my coach told me he was from St. Mary's. Anyway, the fix was in. And he tells me, congratulations, you had a hell of a year, Al. And I wish we could have recruited you. I said, well, you didn't offer a scholarship. But you're going to St. Mary's. I said, I'm not going to St. Mary's. I don't know what you're talking about. But your coaches told me you're going to St. Mary's. I said, well, you're telling me your coach is lying? I said, well, when you're raised in the ghetto, your language is not very deep. You just kind of go, whatever. Figure it out for yourself, right? So he said, so if I offer you a scholarship, will you accept that, Al? I said, are you offering? I'll have it for you tomorrow morning. So I'll wait all morning, no call. That night, the phone rings late in the evening, and it's Jim. And he says, Al? And nobody can answer the phone. I'm the only one. I'm there all day. I'm answering the phone. Get off the phone. My sister wanted to talk to her boyfriend. Get off the phone. You know, I'm trying to get this call. There was no call waiting. None of that back then. It was a rotary, you remember? So anyway, he says, Al, how'd you expect to get into Texas Lutheran? You're in the third quarter of your class. And you've never taken the SAT? Well, I didn't know what an SAT was. Nobody in my family ever been to college. I never thought I was going to go to college. I couldn't even afford the books. Why would I go to college? Make any sense for me? I thought I was pretty smart. The hell. So third quarter of the class, first quarter of the class, who gives a damn? Really. Basketball, that's a different deal. That's different. That was different. I could do that. So he says, well, Al, are you there? Mm-hmm. He says, well, look, Al, you got to take the SAT. And the last time you can take it, this is in March. It was in March. He says, it's next week, and it's being offered at your school. I checked. You got to get 2 number 2 pencils, and you got to get there by 8 because they're going to lock the doors. And you got to get a good night's sleep. And by the way, you got to get over 1100 because we won't make an exception for you otherwise. You might as well go to St. Mary's. Well, I had no idea what that was. But I did know how to get to the school, and I did know how to get there at 8, and I did get 2 number 2 pencils. But before then, I got real quiet on the phone, and he says, Al, are you still on the phone? You're not going to do it, are you, Al? I stayed real quiet. He says, I already paid the $20. Well, I wasn't going to do it because I have the $20. Okay, I'll be there. And I did. And then he calls me, like he gets the score back later, and he says, you're a slacker. You're a slacker. You can't slack at this school. How could you get an SAT like that and be in the third quarter of your class? It's impossible. Well, I had almost a perfect verbal. Can you believe that? Math, not so much. Abstract thinking, very difficult. The brain sometimes doesn't even develop abstractly until you get out of high school, by the way. But I did. I had close to an 800 or whatever on verbal. Oh, well, I had read as a way to escape my horrible existence since I was in 4th grade. That's all I did. It was my way to escape. I was escaping my books. I was always a reader. That's all I know how to do. I wouldn't have been at TLC if I hadn't been a reader. High vocabulary. Not so good on the grammar. Schwartz. Anybody know Schwartz? God dang it. I swear. So I placed out of English, freshman English. And I'm making fun of all my friends because, they had to take, they didn't place out. I'm smarter. And so I take the second part, right? And you have to have freshman comp in order to graduate. I do not understand that rule. Why? So I take Schwartz and I write. I wrote my heart out, poured my heart out, and he gave me an F. Because I had a run-on sentence or some bullshit. So I go in, I go, what the hell? I cannot, after I get another F. Did you read what I wrote? Don't you care about what I wrote? No, I don't care about how you write. I really don't care what your story's about. Well, you should care. I'm thinking like I'm an author in a book, I'm thinking that I'm writing a story and that should get me an A. The story I thought was damn good. Nah, you had another run-on sentence and your grammar kind of lacking out. So I flunked the class. The only class I ever flunked at TLC. So you know what I did next semester? I took him again, of course. And guess what happened? I got a D or a C, I don't know what the hell. I can't believe I couldn't win. So I said, well, the hell with it. I ain't gonna worry about it. I took World Lit 1, World Lit 2, you have to do that at the time. I got A's and B's. So I come up my senior year, and I have to graduate. I'm missing 1 credit hour, freshman comp. And the registrar looks at me and says, Al, how'd you get A's and B's in World Lit and what is it, American Literature, 4 classes, and you didn't pass freshman com. I said, well, it's your damn Seidel Schwartz. That's the damn problem in the school. And so then I ended up taking freshman com and getting an A at Southwest Texas. And I still see Seidel Schwartz, and he's still my favorite professor. He is. He is. I love him. I learned more from him than any other professor. I'm still not good at grammar. Damn it. So I hire people that are English majors, so they make me look good. That's why I'm a reader. It's about all I know how to do, really. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
What do you do to keep all your employees on the same mindset and goals as you?
90% of managers in America are called leaky self-esteem managers. 90%. That's why only 10% of the companies in America are good. A leaky self-esteem manager is a person whose self-esteem is leaking, so they step on you to get ahead. They tend to be brash and a little too loud. I don't hire those type as managers. I did when I was young. It didn't work. I hire opposite. If somebody tells me they want to be a manager, I really want to make them a manager, especially the real nice people. That might sound crazy. It's not crazy. If you have people that treat people right and have empathy and they're well-read, and you have good defined strategies that are differentiated, and you're writing software, you're going to do really well. If you get leaky self-esteem managers like all the other yahoos, they're going to run everybody out of your company out. And you won't even know when they leave. I always tell people, everybody comes to work every day thinking positively, like Groundhog Day. You wake up, I'm going to have a great day, and then something happens, and usually that something is bad, and usually that's a manager. Every time. Every time. So I track turnover. 3 reasons why people leave a job, statistically. 1, they don't like what they're doing. 2, they don't like who they're doing it for. And 3 is money. If I have turnover, it's usually I don't like who they're doing it for. I'm just telling you. It's always that way. Can't hide from it. And I do written exit interviews on everybody that leaves. That's kind of like, oh, careful what you say to an employee because they're going to get you on the way out. You know, they cuss me out and they, you did? No. I've had 3 people that say you did. I think you did. You know, you establish patterns or you eliminate them. So that's how we do it.
You talked a lot about the books you're reading, books you've read. If you had to boil it down to 5 to 7 books that every college graduate should read, what do you think it would be?
I would say the great books, without a doubt. And I would get the primer, the Cliff Notes. It's called The Great Books by Denby. Read that one. And if that doesn't hook you to read the books, nothing will. I mean, I read them, and I hadn't read all of them. I hadn't read Jane Eyre. I hadn't read Virginia Woolf. And that's the first thing I read. I loved them. I wish I'd read them 30 years ago. Damn. To a Lighthouse or Virginia Woolf. Oh, you have to read that. Of course, I got 12 copies. I'm giving them out to everybody. You know, here. You know. Read this, especially if they just got married. I said, here, read this. Love that book. Anyway, I would say the great books.
You talked a lot about defining success in life and business, and you asked these questions to us. But I mean, so what do you consider successful life or successful business?
Well, there's a certain inherent value system in America that Tocqueville writes about, how we always collapse to the middle. Remember? America is a big experience in the big middle. You've probably read that all your life, right? That's the Tocqueville, by the way, being quoted by all these hacks. But you should go to the original source, because then you might say it differently or correct these guys. But the fact is the fact. And I have an uncle, and he became very successful. And he became a vice president. He opened up Walmart in Mexico, Canada, Germany, and Argentina. And so he had stock options, and he retired. His goal in life was to travel a country, 2 countries every year. I think he's going to Machu Picchu next month. And he wants his last check to bounce when he dies. Definitely a middle-income American value. Totally. Totally. A European value is you never cash out. The family stands on the capital you built. And builds on that. And capital is defined as an intellectual capital, as well as monetary, as well as assets, as well as people, as well as systems. Capital is never eroded. I'm more in the European side. So my goal is to do that. My goal is the company will survive, will sustain itself. It'll never sell. It'll always stand on top of other people's shoulders. And I like to read. I could have a surgery in my eyes because I'm nearsighted. And, farsighted can be fixed, but when you fix it, you lose your nearsighted. I'm not losing my reading. I can read here perfectly. I'm not going to have the surgery. I mean, my idea of growing old is if I have my books and I have Alzheimer's, I'm going to get a gun and shoot you if you come get me. Just leave me alone. I'll read my books. I'm happy. I'll be very happy. Very happy. Extremely happy. You have to define it for yourself. That's the point. Everybody has a way of defining it. And God, I had to guard against all the pleasures. I have to. I have to. Or you will be a sinner. Gluttony is not a good word, by the way. It's just not. I can have one car, better not have five, okay? Seriously, who does that? I'd have two. I have a 2004 green truck because I like to hunt. And that dog can hunt. That's it. And it's paid for. I can never start it because it stays there for 5 months. God dang it. Got to figure that out. Anyway, anybody else have a question? Yes? Well, I'm sorry. We'll go to you. No, she's been raising her hand. I'm sorry. Then we'll come back to you.
Is there a particular book that you think has influenced your life above all others?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I'm whining. I'm losing my hearing.
Is there a particular book that you think has influenced your life above all the others that you've read? You've brought up a number of...
A big event?
A book.
A book?
Any particular book that you think has just influenced your life as you've furthered your career?
I would say War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I love Tolstoy's quote, one of the most favorite ones. He says that if a certain short, swarthy, dark Corsican hadn't crowned himself king of France, somebody else would have been king of the world, and it would have been a French guy. The only reason he was crowned, by the way, he crowned himself, was because he was smart enough to seize the moment in history. So the big philosophical argument with Tolstoy is, does man make history or does history make the man? He says that history makes the man. Man never makes history. So if you believe him, then you would say our country was ready for a black president. It just so happened that Obama stepped up and seized it. And that would be right. And it would be right. So the key to you is, when do you seize history? That's the key. When do you? Read it, study it, seize it. Be the little dark, swarthy, slick Corsicana. Crown yourself. That's why I like that book. That and the study of society. I mean, if I want to be affluent, I have to know affluent societies. Does that make sense? It's like when I was young, somebody told me, if you want to be a banker, know a bank president. Makes sense.
You talked about being on the board for the education system in Dallas, and I was looking online, and you are involved in different events in the community. Do y'all encourage your employees to be involved in the community as well?
Let me talk about that, yes. Two reasons why. Aside from the fact that businesses only exist to make their communities better. By the way, hello. Not supposed to be for, greedy owners. It's supposed to be for making society better. Business pays for the streets, utilities, called taxes. We create jobs. We pay for professors. We pay tuition. We pay everything. We have to be about community. We have to be. All of us, if you're in business, should be about community. All of us. You're incomplete if you're not. You just are. Another reason. If you read leaders at all levels, they highly advocate that you run a nonprofit because then you're running two businesses. If you can run two, you can run three, you can run four, you can run five, you can run 10, you can run 20. It's like you cannot develop your leadership skills in a classroom. You can't. I'm sorry. A lot of things you can do in a classroom, you can't develop leadership in a classroom. You can on a nonprofit board. And it costs you nothing. And you gain more than anybody. And aside from the fact that you're doing a community good. Oh, yes, for all those reasons, if that's how you develop. You're in a leadership position. Go run a nonprofit. Go ahead. Go do it. They need you. They do. They need people like you, young people that are smart. They need to connect. Most of these nonprofits are trying to connect with young people. You need to get on there, and you watch your leadership skills develop. They won't develop otherwise. They won't develop in your cube at work. Sorry, not going to happen. So that's why you have to do it. When I ran 5 nonprofits at one time. 5. You think that's a lot? I know CEOs that run 30 companies. It's amazing the capacity of mine. Mine's a little lazy. 5, only 5. But I became a very different manager. I run now one that's $1 billion, UNT. It is. It's $1 billion budget. Medical school, law school, just opening this next year. We're going to open another medical school. We just opened a pharmacy school, an emerging campus downtown Dallas, and a big flagship, 36,000 kids. I run it. Make no mistake, I run it. Where would I learn that kind of leadership? Selling groceries. Where would I learn that? How would you learn that? There's a great author, and I think it's God, maybe you can help me who said this quote. Oh, I just had it, I lost it. But the quote is, may you live in many worlds. I think it's Deming, Edward S. Deming, the professor of quality, the guru of quality, total quality management. Anyway, he said, may you live in many worlds. Well, if you live in, like I was chair of YOSA, that's all music, youth orchestra, chair of a nonprofit, the school, and I was on the school board, elected position for Elmo Heights. I'm running a company, so I have 5. Those are 5 worlds, totally different. But where I go, all 5 go. Think about how better an executive you make yourself. So may you live in many worlds, and all the worlds go with you. That's what I would offer you. May you live in many worlds. Many worlds. You can read 5 books, you can run 5 different companies. It's no different. Just got to read it. And you get in trouble. By the way, I was in trouble when I had 5. That's too much, right? I was in trouble. Dog paddling, trying to stay up. But you learn how to swim with 5. Get good at it. Like anything else, your brain grows. So yeah, it's a great question, by the way. Great question you asked on nonprofits. Awesome way to get your leadership skills. And it costs you nothing. And it costs the company nothing. And you do great good. Better than an internship. And watch the connections you make. Watch your career soar. All of a sudden you're rubbing president, you're there rubbing shoulders with Pat Frost or Tom Frost, and and they're looking for another board member and another one, and go, hey, well, call her. She'll do it. And there you go. Builds a resume. Trust me, it does. Dramatically so. Anybody else?
Would you say your company is sticky?
Pardon me?
Would you say your company is sticky?
Is what?
For customers, is it sticky?
Sticky?
Like, do the customers stay with you?
Oh. They are if they're successful. they're making money. A customer that loses profits starts kicking like a dead animal. And their vendors is the first thing they kick. As long as they're healthy, they stick. Otherwise, I marry a customer for life, forever. You can't grow with a hole in the bag. You fill it up and the hole's coming. You can't do that. Nope. You got to fill up the bag. You can't have a hole. You got to keep your customers. You have to. Otherwise, what the hell are you doing? Pouring through. You don't get a lot of traction. So, got to be very consistent.
We have one more question.
All right.
You talked about innovation in your technology. Online, you said one of your your sales solution is a centralized selling system.
Like an Amazon.com offer.
Okay, so that's what you were talking about. You did say that your website was going to change and you were going to unveil.
In 2 weeks, it comes out.
Okay, is this going to change?
Okay, let me talk about that. This is that company that has musicians and artists they hire and teach them how to program. So what they, you've heard of bounces. You ever heard the term bounce? When you get on a website and you get off, that's a bounce. So you can track how many bounces you get. There's all these metrics. So when you do a web page, you can actually measure how many hits and how many bounces. And if you can keep somebody online for 9 minutes, they're sold. So it has to be an experience. Animation has to keep you on there. Let's see if you stay on there in 2 weeks. I'd like to know. Send me an email. You'll find me there. Say, Al, I saw the website. 6.5 minutes. Sorry.
Why don't we give Al a big round of applause?
Thank you.
You were talking about. You did say that your
Students
website
at
was gonna
TLU
change,
engage in
you were gonna
high-impact
In 2 weeks it comes
educational
out.
experiences that include civic engagement,
Okay, let me
aesthetic
talk about
expression,
that.
critical
This is that
thinking,
company that
and a
has,
focus on intercultural
musicians
knowledge
and
in a
artists they hire
community
and
that
teach them how to
welcomes
program.
the interplay of faith and reason.
So what they,